Ah.
Sunrise over Rome.
No.
Oh, it's
It's the
not?
United States. It's definitely the United
Oh,
States.
sorry.
Absolutely. Nothing like Italy. Well, this is The Last Man on Earth from 1964. This is the very first feature film adaptation of Richard Matheson's novel, I Am Legend. So if any of you never saw this before, but you do remember I Am Legend with Will Smith, that was the third time this story was done. And in the middle was my all-time favorite, The Omega Man with Charlton Heston. Love that movie. We should do that one sometime, too.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
But this was the first time, and Richard Matheson, not the sort of guy that usually was all too pleased with certain adaptations of his work. Wow, Dead People. That's pretty early for Dead People. This is not looking good. He wasn't thrilled with this. Didn't care for the adaptation, didn't feel it captured his book, and truthfully, it doesn't, because it's drastically different from the novel, as are the other two attempts to adapt it. But it certainly has a mood and atmosphere all its own, and I guess that tells the tale right there. One of the reasons we're talking about it, too, is it's a huge influence on George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. Oh, and look who it is.
Mr. Price.
That's right. It's Mr. Price. Already becoming a horror icon by the time he was shooting this. Had done some William Castle movies most of us know very well, like The Tingler and The House on Haunted Hill.
My favorites. Two of my favorites.
Another day to live through.
And since there's no excitement in the actual action, the music takes over to provide all of it. Thrill to the amazing scenes of Vincent Price scratching his hair and beginning another day.
Making coffee.
You know, I've told you this before many times in talking about this movie. This is really a testament to Price's acting, because there you go, where it all starts.
65. Is that all it has been since I inherited the world?
Yeah, it kind of went by fast.
Years.
An important thing, though, right there, isn't it? 1968.
The film is taking place in the very year that 4 years after this film would be the year when Night of the Living Dead comes out. It's a nice little link. What I was saying...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Night of the Living Dead, of course, was released on October 1st of 1968, wasn't it? So it's funny that he's in early September. So basically, roughly by the end of this movie, Night of the Living Dead takes place.
So actually, Last Man on Earth might even be a prequel, except it doesn't work at all.
So going back to what you were saying.
Well, I was just saying that Vincent Price is a man that always seems so elegant and you know, seems more at home in period pieces most of the time, although he's done plenty of contemporary stuff that we love. So it just seems odd seeing him trying to appear disheveled, and I'm sorry, but for me, he just still always looks like he's way too in control, and his hair too in control for him to really look like he's falling apart at all. But he certainly gives it a good shot. He just looks like somebody who would have someone else handle this for him rather than do it himself. You know, Richard Matheson did not like the casting either. Thought that Vincent Price was the wrong choice. And to be perfectly honest, I kind of see the point of that based on what I just said.
Well, I agree with you, too. I mean, when he goes out a little bit later, which we'll see soon, he's, you know, wearing a jacket and, you know, he's got his shirt tucked in and nice slacks. And you think, well, I mean, I guess part of that could have been the costume designer's choice, or, you know, obviously was the costume designer's choice. But then you wonder, well, could Vincent Price really have gone out in just a dirty T-shirt and jeans, you know? And I don't think I could have imagined
I would
that.
never have bought that for a second. No. Well, see, another thing about this movie, just in general, the opinions about this film have varied greatly. A lot of people...
Yeah,
I feel like I shouldn't be talking over Vincent Price when he talks, but we really should. It's a sad situation to be in. Corpses everywhere.
Well, it must have been quite a party.
More of them for the pit. Every day there are more of them. They live off the weak ones.
Crosses and garlic up. We're going to talk about that soon, yes. I use this film in my zombie college course at the University of Baltimore. I include it in my book Zombie Mania that I co-authored with Andy Hirschberger, all about zombie cinema. And yet, as many people will argue, but wait a minute, these creatures are really vampires, aren't they? Well, there's sort of a crossover between the two. If you want to use what's become a popularized term, you can call them zompires. But it's true they're on the periphery of both genres. I include them, but they're in that blurry area. And since this film has such a huge impact on Romero, we have to acknowledge it, and it's sort of a mix of the two. These creatures are both zombies and vampires in a lot of ways. But if you're a vampire fan, you like this movie, and you want to argue the point, that's fine. Find me at a convention sometime, and we can talk about it like decent adults.
KOKW calling.
What fills the time in the post-apocalypse? Ham radios. Yeah, that look good.
Is there a real? Are those real call letters?
It's real call letters, yeah.
Where are they? Where do they originate from? Do you know?
Oh, I forgot. I actually had that note down. Yeah, they're real call letters. It's not associated with the same location, I think, but yeah. I did like also his cup of tea again. It looked very dainty and elite, having his cup.
I assumed it was coffee, but then of course, he's got this tiny little cup. It's like, I'm sorry,
yeah,
I would
that's
have been
right.
drinking it out of the pot.
Yeah, it looked like tea. It looked like a teacup. You're probably right, though.
I need more mirrors.
Now, here's one of the interesting things people often talk about, too, is the whole vampire angle. As we'll see, the entire world has fallen to a plague of undisclosed origins. Frequently throughout the film, it'll be referred to as having been on the wind. It's a great little metaphor for the whole thing. But these creatures have become undead and vampire-like or zombie-like in their behavior. But the bigger question is, why do crosses and garlic and mirrors really work on them? They're not supernatural creatures as far as we can tell. They're scientific in origin. They're from a disease. But then again, if you think about it, could it be that human beings, having believed a lot of their own folklore and mythology, maybe they're reacting to those things because they think they're supposed to react to them? Maybe they think they're supposed to be repelled by these things, but they're not actually working at all. But you'll see as they behave later on, whether or not you believe these monsters are really vampire-like or if they're just behaving in similar ways.
I can't afford the luxury of anger.
Anger's bad.
Make me vulnerable. It can destroy my reason, and reason's
You
the
wouldn't
only
want to see him
advantage I
angry.
have
No.
over them. I've got to find where they hide during
Check
the
the
day.
mail, see what came in.
For every one of them.
Work on my murder map.
Madison, 31st Avenue.
See, that's the other thing, too, is that except for the alternate ending of Will Smith's film, the movies never really dealt with what Matheson's real theme in his novel was, which is flipping the script in terms of a classic monster story. It's the lone human being left on Earth who has become the monster for a race of creatures that are now the dominant race on the planet. But this whole notion, which is where the title comes from, he's a legend because he's the boogeyman, basically. But they don't really focus on that thematically too much, except in the alternate ending of the Will Smith one, which they then conveniently cut out of the theatrical cut because they didn't think movie-going audiences could deal with that.
I still get squeamish.
And of course, we love Vincent Price, and he's already become sort of our hero through countless other strange and macabre films. Macabre! So
Where it belongs.
perhaps later on he'll entertain us with a little reading of The Raven!
Get it.
The Raven! So I was reading that he actually insisted on these being real people for the weight.
She's trying
Kind
to
of an
help.
interesting
She's
little
trying to
thing.
keep her legs up.
Getting a little fresh there.
I'll just carry her into this car.
Give you a hug.
Bill Hader's Vincent Price is not supposed to be Vincent Price, but it's just so hysterical. We apologize in advance for the inevitable constant use of Bill.
We just can't help it.
Driving a hearse, later to be popularized by the tall man in the Phantasm films. Uh-oh.
I'm out of gas. That means one more stop I'll have to make.
There are people who criticize this movie and say that it's very slow and pondering. In fact, didn't you see that Charlton Heston himself didn't have very kind words about this movie?
Yeah, that's true. He apparently viewed it before he shot The Omega Man and described it as incredibly botched, totally unfrightening, ill-acted, sloppily written, and photographed.
I can get rid of them later.
So it's really
Tell us what you really
yeah,
feel.
I know. He was keeping himself under control because out of respect for Vincent Price and all the fine filmmakers in Italy. I mean, not at all. I love that cityscape behind us and a shot or two back there, as if you couldn't guess where we were. But yeah, I have to disagree with him. Of course, I don't see the point also in sort of trying to hype your own work by then denigrating past work. So a lot of people do criticize this movie, but I think it's also gone through quite a bit of reevaluation over the years, and a lot of people, both of us included, certainly have turned to it as a really good atmospheric piece. It's not a fast-paced film. It's a film that's really very dark and dreary in a way that's intended to be. It's about the end of the world. It's about some really depressing stuff. And I think it captures that by being slow, by pacing itself, and by letting you sort of dwell in this world where you're really alone with him for a good part of the time. I mean, just the idea of dumping these bodies into this pit, there's something so horrific about having reduced people to just something to deliver to a spot and dump. It's really disturbing. Of course, anybody that watches The Walking Dead every week now has gotten used to this kind of thing. Imagine what this was like in 1964. For all of our UK friends, gas masks, always a good symbol for horror. Maybe I should mention a little bit about where this all came from, too. There is the possibility that we might have had a Hammer Films version of this Last Man on Earth production, because that was the original intent. When the plan to adapt Richard Matheson's novel first came up, it was going to be at Hammer, and it was actually being developed in the late 1950s. But that all fell through. It was going to be Val Guest directing it. It was going to be called The Night Creatures. And anybody that's a Hammer fan will probably remember there is a movie, The Night Creatures. It's the U.S. title for Captain Clegg. So Hammer didn't waste anything. So since The Night Creatures was still sitting around, they used the title. This is my favorite kind of shopping, when it's empty and you can just get through and get what you want. But anyway, when the Hammer deal fell through, it went over to Robert Lippert in the United States, who promised Richard Matheson that Fritz Lang himself would direct the film. And that obviously didn't happen at all. Unless I'm missing some German expressionism that I'm seeing in this. But instead, it wound up being directed by a tag team of Ubaldo Ragona, which I think I'm pronouncing correctly, who is the director in Italy. And yes, that's right. Of course, if you hadn't guessed by now, this whole thing is being shot in Italy with a largely Italian crew and cast, with Vincent Price as their token actor from afar to lend it some, maybe not credibility, but marketability, certainly.
It's still fresh, but I'll take only what I need.
I love garlic.
Gotta last.
And Sidney Salkow, who also worked with Price on Twice Told Tales, which I really, really like. Great anthology movie. Salk?
No, I know.
Yeah.
I was sorry. I was going to say I know that Matheson took a turn at the script early on. Is that correct?
Yeah, and then he was rewritten. So,
Has that script ever been released to the general public?
I don't know. I don't know if there's any way of seeing Matheson's script. There may very well be someone who's listening to this who knows that for a fact. He did take on a pseudonym after it was rewritten to try to disown the whole thing, which makes sense because they're adapting his book. They threw away his draft pretty much, or at least heavily reworked it, and then it was no longer anything to do with what he wanted it to be. That tends to happen a lot with these things, though. Unless you're the kind of person that has the clout to be involved at the sort of upper echelons of an adaptation, you're not necessarily going to be able to direct the creative element in that way. So really, we've never seen an actual adaptation of Richard Matheson's book. Not in any direct, significant way.
Many of them still exist. How long will I have to keep up?
I was going to say the director, Sidney Salkow, worked on this. Also worked on a lot of television. Some of his last credits in his career was The Addams Family. Did a lot of TV. Look, she's just trying to sleep.
Yeah, look at this.
This is
kind of horrific.
And then on we go to the next shot.
Yeah, let's go and murder more people. So, of course, at this point, I keep saying murder people. But at this point, as far as we know, these are monsters.
Yeah, although now it looks like he's just killing a homeless guy.
That is true, actually. They haven't really gone into the fact that these are monsters yet. So, I can't imagine how audiences reacted to this film early on.
This is actually, very confusing. And you're right, we don't really have the full sense of what, I was going to say, what's at stake. Didn't write that in advance. But it doesn't put him in a good light, of course, because it seems really questionable what he's doing. And, of course, the point is it is sort of questionable what he's doing.
Right.
He's killing other beings. Whatever we might actually feel about whether we're taking a side, those beings are thinking, feeling creatures that are not just automatons. They're not seeking to eat the flesh of the living, like the zombies that will one day be introduced after this, the ghouls. And although they pose a threat to him, it certainly seems like he's established himself as a threat. So why wouldn't they?
I mean, not to jump the gun here, but, the funny thing is that in this story, ideally, he could just pack his stuff up and move to the country where there are no vampires or zombies, and just be away from them and let them, go on with their lives. But he's so stubborn that he has to stay in his old house in the city surrounded by these creatures. So it really is in his hands about his destiny.
Again, having watched so much Walking Dead lately, I think about so many things in terms of Walking Dead style dialogue. A lot of people have noted how everybody on Walking Dead talks exactly the same now. So all I can hear in my head is, it's on you, man. It's on you. It's not on me. It's on you.
Well, of course, speaking of Walking Dead and Morgan.
That's right.
Kind of an important character.
Yeah, there's a connection here because Morgan, they changed the name from Matheson's novel, Robert Neville. The character name they did wind up using in the next two, Omega Man and I Am Legend, but they changed his name to Robert Morgan in this. Why? Why not? So there's your Morgan from Walking Dead, and you might remember... Morgan. Come on, Morgan.
Come out.
You might...
This is nothing like Night of the Living.
No, not at all. Romero wasn't watching this at all and going, hey, I could do that kind of thing too. I can make that film.
Morgan.
I love him smiling there. You can just see he's just losing it.
Yeah. I like the craziness of it, the crazed aspect to it.
He's got crazy eyes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no denying, regardless of what I said earlier about, like, there may be aspects of this where you could say, yes, he doesn't quite fit what you might think. He's Vincent Price. He's still fantastic to watch. Compelling guy and brilliant. And he does a great job with making this his own, and fitting his style. So it's still great. I just never buy a disheveled Vincent Price. I was briefly going to say that Morgan's son Dwayne in The Walking Dead was also named after Dwayne Jones from Night of the Living Dead. So
there you go.
All kind of connections. Flowers on the sofa. Is that some subtle thematic comment about the joy and happiness and springtime that has been lost on Earth that he can no longer reclaim except for moments of a nap on the sofa? No, probably not.
Another day.
But in my class, that would get you an A. That's just an example. See, that is actually the kind of thing you can look for in a movie like this and go, well, did they intend that? Sometimes they do. Sometimes they think about things that deeply. and structure things to give you sort of symbolic and visual cues. Do they always? Of course not. But if you come along and come up with a compelling little reason why that adds something for you when you watch the movie, then it's just as valid. But some people can come along and say, well, you're just reaching. How's that murder map going? Pretty good.
Three across.
Why is there like a long swath downward that he seems to have covered in like a tight corridor, but then at the top it's really extensive? And there's a gap, so he skipped a part. Not really following his logic on how he's hunting them down. Today on Yankee Workshop, we're teaching you how to make vampire steaks. I used to love watching the Yankee Workshop with Norm Abrams, but the thing about it was I could never understand why it was an instructional show, because he had all this high-tech, industrialized equipment that surely nobody could actually afford to own. So it's like, today we're going to make a bureau, and for that I'm going to go over to my bureau making table.
So clearly Morgan has a steak-making lathe.
He's got a steak-making lathe. Good thing he got one just before everything collapsed, 'cause it's coming in handy now. Random pile of bricks. Crosses everywhere. Oh, look. Come on. This is not reaching. There's tons and tons of overt religious imagery in this movie, including the fact that as the last man on Earth, Morgan's character is going to be very Christ-like in certain aspects of the story. Someone that will die for our sins in a certain respect. The church is going to play a significant role. We're certainly going to see it again by the conclusion of the film. And since vampires are often associated with religious imagery because they're sort of a perversion of everything, it's interesting we're seeing it all crop up in a movie in which it's largely supposed to be science fiction, really. Nothing supernatural is supposedly happening.
Birds. Birds. God, how
What's also interesting is how much of this movie he really has to carry on his own. Eventually we'll add some other cast members, but apart from some shambling creatures, he's got a lot to do where it's just front and center on him through so much of it. Uh-oh. You know, when you're the last man on Earth, you really shouldn't just fall asleep randomly. Exactly. See? Look outside, idiot. There you go.
They'll be everywhere.
Darkness. They're just...
Get out of my way.
Just... I'm not signing things now. See you later at the convention. Wandering around. The creatures in this film also seem to be attracted to cars quite often. Not really sure why.
Not at all like zombies.
Nope. See, some people that listen to our show also asked us specifically, or me to talk about this and why I use this, and it's in my zombie book and in the zombie course, and obviously it plays a role in influencing things. Here you go. Perfect example. So much of it, all of a sudden it's bright daylight. Even though,
day for night. Day for night,
except they didn't bother to actually do anything with the shot. Oh, now it's dark out.
Yeah, now it's dark.
He's been driving for days, I guess. Look, it's Morgan. He's home.
Get him!
Hey. Except for Ben, who we haven't even found out his name yet, who's our speaking creature. Notice how most of them don't talk. They groan. They gather around in mobs. They're easily tossed over when there's one or two of them. They pick up boards and rocks and use them as weapons. They are, for the most part, identical to the ghouls that you will see in George Romero's Night of the Living Dead 4 years later. And there we go. With the use of the mirror, there's a bit of vampire connection to that. But so much of the body language and behavior is more zombie-like than vampire. Now, there are people that are more vampire scholars that might say, well, if you look in classic folklore about vampires, vampires are usually more like what we now think of as zombies. Loathsome, undead creatures, not the romantic characters of later fiction. So there's so much in these creatures that's a gray area of both. And I think that both sides can lay claim to this movie for everything that it represents. So yes, for a zombie fan who defines things by Romero and Kirkman, or for people that even reach back to the very beginning with the Haitian zombies or anything else, you might say this doesn't quite work. But let's just say it sits on the periphery of the zombie genre, and its influence is so powerful and so important for Night of the Living Dead that if you'd like to put it this way, you can say they're honorary zombies in this movie. But there's certainly plenty to connect them to it.
Well, and of course the other thing too is that these vampires or zombies, however you want to call them, can be cured, as we'll soon find out.
That's right. And the other interesting thing about that is that connects these creatures even more toward a lot of the things we're seeing in zombie storytelling, even vampire storytelling today, where we seem to want to domesticate or cure or save the monsters now more often. We have sentient, self-aware zombies in a lot of our stories. So Last Man on Earth has creatures that are sort of ahead of their time in a certain sense, too. He's got a lot of interesting film. Who was taking the footage of them at the circus, and then who sat down and edited it into a tight presentation that intercut between his family and the action down in the ring? Maybe he spent some time doing that.
Amateur filmmaker.
I cut this together myself. Always makes me laugh.
Especially the chimpanzees.
Aww. There's someone at the door. There's something really, really unsettling about watching Vincent Price lose it. Aw, don't you just want to hug him? It's so sad. I know a few people have seen this movie that say that actually the reason they don't like it is that it's relentlessly sad. And again, like we said before, that's part of what it's capturing is the total despair. I think it does a pretty good job of that, particularly with one scene that we'll get to later that's probably, I would say, one of the signature scenes of the whole movie. I defy anyone watching this film not to spend the next week or two afterward just hearing Morgan in their head.
Oh, yeah.
Over and over and over again. So
we say it to each other all the time.
Yeah, just randomly for no reason.
Diddle-a-doo, diddle-a-doo. Flashback.
But how did it begin? Let's take a look. Actually, I don't buy him as a family man at home either, so I guess I don't really buy Vincent Price in anything to do with this in a way.
There's no pit, there's no pendulum, there's no skeleton in acid.
What I would like is if this scene had just been done exactly the same as everyone else in it, but that he'd be wearing something with frilly cuffs and like and a cravat. You're like, why is he dressed like that? Well, he always does.
So another thing you should definitely comment on is for people who maybe are watching this for the first time, you will probably notice that voices are dubbed.
Voices are dubbed, yes, because since this is an Italian production, Vincent Price is our lead actor and brought in to headline the entire thing for obvious reasons, even at that point. Like we're saying earlier, he had stacked up quite a few roles by now that had established him as a go-to lead for horror. But everyone else was cast in Italian productions, Italian actors, and not a lot of credits from anything that people might know unless you're really steeped in Italian cinema and television. So there's not a lot to talk about as far as other things you might see them crop up in, although one or two things possibly. But the dubbing
It is.
Actually, I think the dubbing kind of adds to the whole mood of the movie. There's sort of a creepy aspect to the fact that everybody's voices feel like they're floating on a different level that I think actually helps the feeling of the film in a way that normally I think would hamper it. So I just like the way it feels. And of course, in a scene like this, he's being looped too because he's evidently there was a lot of background noise, so everybody here is being looped at this point. I particularly like the kid talking later when she's in. Well, we haven't gotten to it yet, but there will be an oxygen tent, and it won't be pretty.
Robert, is it possible this
Sure, why not?
Could be airborne?
It's a rickety table there. Watch yourself.
Anything is possible, Verge. The best
Brains.
in the world have been running through this thing with a fine-tooth comb. The germ is visible under a microscope.
Yes, heavy exposition here for what little information they're going to provide.
In what way?
It can't be destroyed by any process we've been able to uncover.
But with the whole world
Yeah,
dying,
no.
there must be a solution.
Interestingly, though, it does appear as though the actors that were cast were speaking English.
Yeah, that's something that's always interesting to watch too, particularly when you see like anybody that's a fan of like kaiju films, for instance. When you watch a lot of international productions, more the European productions than things from Japan or whatever, where you'll see a lot of the actors, even though they replace their voices anyway, are clearly speaking English or trying to approximate English. Maybe they're speaking it phonetically if they don't even know, but they still replace their voices because obviously it's never going to come off as well as if they had somebody just saying the lines, but at least it makes it look like it matches a little better. Boy, that is one flowery room.
Could that represent the spring that he will... Oh, never mind.
Yes.
Can I get an A, please?
You get an A. Well, and look, let's face it. There's stuff here. It's all about the color white and purity. And of course, anytime in a horror movie when you're dealing with a child, you can easily go to some basic assumptions, which is a representation of innocence and hope for the future. And then if you kill a child in a horror movie, it's the death of all hope. So let's look forward to that because that's what's going to happen. Yeah, it's equally flowery in here, though. There are flowers everywhere.
The wind wake you up?
The wind.
It always does.
It's on the wind. The answer, my friend.
I'm all right.
Oh, don't get up, honey.
I'm not sick, Bob. I'll make
I think
don't
this
have
is
to.
some of the saddest stuff in the whole film, though, is just watching him lose everything.
All right.
And knowing that he's
And
losing everything.
Yeah. And knowing it. I'm sorry, that bureau is just really tacky. That thing over there. And then there's flowers on top of it, like as if to say, you know what this thing with flowers all over it needs? More flowers. That's what we're going to do. I don't know. I'm hoping that maybe that's not Morgan's design sense, but his wife. I don't know. Let's see.
He's more into scrap lumber and
Yes.
extension cords.
And hearses. He'll finally get to make use of that design sense later on.
Oh, sweetheart.
And now she's wearing like a microwave quilt of some kind. Just
That's all.
We will see that house coat return, but it'll be in a worse state a little later on.
oh yeah.
It's all we're working
Another
on at the
strong
back.
influence on this film, and we'll get to it later,
Maybe you better not
is
send him to school today.
the short story "The Monkey's Paw," which even if you've never read the original, you have certainly experienced that story or motif in some form in your life because it's one of the most influential plots, influential concepts in pop culture. Tons and tons of TV shows and films have done variations on it, and in a short little piece of this, we get sort of a riff on the monkey's paw later. It's the scene I referred to earlier that I think is just one of the best moments in the movie. When I give this film to students, for instance, well, first of all, students will often tell me they've never seen a black and white movie before in their lives. Now, let's get past the sad part of that and realize that that's just the way things are. And then I give them lots of black and white movies to watch. starting with White Zombie and leading up to films like this and Night of the Living Dead. And they laugh at a lot of these movies, and that's to be expected too. The pacing, the acting, so many things they're not accustomed to, they just think seem laughable. But when they get to this one scene we're going to be getting to in this film, when I've shown it in class, you can hear a pin drop when they get to that part. So it just speaks to how effective it is that even in the midst of a movie that they think is hokey or cheesy or just not up to their standards, it can still chill them completely. And they all talk about that scene afterward.
What did the great man of science have to say today? More of the usual?
Oh, he's trying, Ben. Just like
Ben may be helping to work on a cure, but he also has excellent hair.
The streets are swarming with truckloads
Look
of
at that.
they're throwing into that god-awful pit.
So glossy and shiny.
The dedicated Dr. Mercer goes on with his plodding, unimaginative...
I think the other office across the hall is where they work on their latest hair products, because that explains everything here.
It's as simple as this. An unknown germ.
Now, it's interesting. He's a scientist in the Omega Man, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But he wasn't a scientist in the novel,
No.
if I remember correctly.
And in the Omega Man, he's also shown to be military rather than in this one, where he's...
Why don't they bury them?
Because in the Omega Man, he's wearing a uniform.
To keep the germ from spreading.
And
Always believed, at any rate.
Neville is both. So he represents like the whole military-industrial complex in the Omega Man. And they continue that with Will Smith's character, too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. But
Not so much in the Asylum version, I am Oh My God.
No, not so much. Starring the chairman's nephew himself, Mark Dacascos, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't recommend that film.
Nowhere to be found in this film.
Why can't they stand the sunlight? Why are they...
Well, that's not fair. I shouldn't say I don't recommend it. It's an Asylum guilty pleasure.
Come here.
By the way, Ben was just discussing things about his concerns about what the effects this disease is having. And I'm going to share with you some things that we included in our book Zombie Mania, because we mentioned the fact that obviously these creatures have a lot of vampire-like traits as well as zombie-like traits. They're sensitive to light. Ben just mentioned that. Their own reflection seems to repel them. Garlic crosses. It could be just superstition at work there. He kills them with stakes to the heart, as long as it's wide enough to prevent them from regenerating. And as we're going to find out later, an entire group of them are heavily medicating themselves. So there's a bit of a drug addiction thread running through this as well, which certainly comes up in a lot of B movies at the time. But we also cataloged a few things, which is, for the record, according to the technical terms, these creatures suffer from photophobia, heliophobia, alliumphobia, and isotrope phobia. So you can look those up and sound very, very erudite, and I also like that painting over the fireplace.
It's not of flowers, is it?
No. See? It's nice.
New?
Huh? No, nothing new.
It's of a nice long street. Looks very...
Oh, look. There's the cup.
There's the cup. No pinky out, though, which you'd expect from someone like Vincent Price, so I guess not.
Oh, dear.
Mommy, where are you?
Okay, if you didn't have any problem with the looping up to this point, here's where things get really weird. I actually think this also makes this even more chilling. But there's the part soon where she can't see,
Well, this way
and
she
her
has a chance.
pleading is
If you call a doctor,
just
you'll report
gets
it.
under your skin,
Do you want that?
as it should.
Mommy, help me. Mommy.
It just sounds horrible.
It's awful, yeah.
How can you be so
See, now the
sweet?
blindness thing was really strange when that came up. When I originally saw this film, I immediately thought of Day of the Triffids.
Yes,
No
sure.
one is to come into this house. Now remember
Oh,
Mommy. Mommy.
that's just so sad and pathetic. It may not be
got
beautifully
this
acted
recording.
necessarily. It doesn't quite match the
the lab.
the level of distress
No
there,
one
but
is
it's
coming to
just
this house. Now remember
uncomfortable.
She sounds a little bit like the looped voice that was in David Lynch's Dune of Paul's sister.
Oh, there we go. And again, a lot of motifs that are going to be familiar to people from a lot of later films, particularly zombie movies, but even movies like Steven Soderbergh's Contagion,
Mm-hmm.
which played with a lot of the same stuff, and for all intents and purposes, fantastic movie, but as many people put it, and I would too, basically done at a time where the zombie resurgence was in full force and still is as we speak today, and basically a zombie movie without the zombies, just dealing with the disease aspect of it. But Last Man on Earth has a lot of that DNA that it then lent to many future films that also deal with the destruction of humanity through the spread of the plague on the wind. Notice how the plant behind him is shuddering. That's one thing I didn't touch on too much until now, but notice they go out of their way throughout the movie
We're late.
to keep you aware of the wind. You hear the wind throughout the movie. You see the wind throughout the movie. The entire idea is that, and they mention in dialogue, this is on the wind. It ties in with the religious imagery because there's sort of this implication that it's indestructible, they can't figure it out, they can't stop it. It's on the wind. It's just something that's happening. It's almost like a judgment from somewhere. This is just the apocalyptic end. And throughout the film, the wind is almost like a character. And it creates a lot of that inescapable mood.
You understand? Get away from here.
I love that touch throughout the movie. Of course, there's probably a guy right under Price shaking that plant.
Yeah.
Which is not the best.
Movie magic.
That's right. Guy right at his feet. I'm trying to act here. Just go to the package. That doesn't look good. He's very dapper looking now with the hat. I've never quite understood why in this era it seemed like men were wearing hats nonstop, and it always seems awkward wearing one inside a car.
Mm-hmm.
And now, where'd the hat go? I guess he left it.
Put it on the front seat.
It's just his driving hat. Nobody told him that it was a day off. He comes all the way in.
I even dressed for Casual Friday.
Look at me.
I took my hat off.
No frilly cuffs today. Oh, there we go.
Floyd the Barber. Oh, Amy.
Thought maybe we try to cure the plague.
All gone? That's right.
No.
Is there any hope from the latest
No
reports?
hope. Are you kidding? Did you read the script?
Not yet.
It's over.
But believe me, Morgan, we'll find an answer.
When, Doctor? We need it right now. I need it.
He's going to have a lot to deal with soon where he has to witness his entire family torn away from him. That's another interesting thing, too, is the way this movie is structured. We started off in what's, for all intents and purposes, the present day, and then a lot of the movie is flashback to lay the groundwork, to lay the foundation for where all this came from. And it's something that they then continue in the future versions of the story as well, where they're constantly interspersing, sometimes a little more staccato in structure than this one does, where they keep revisiting bits of the past. But we get sort of this extended sequence here of where all this came from. There's the wind again, blowing even more powerfully as he comes home, and blowing in some of that paper that's always around whenever there's an end of the world.
Oh, they're leaves.
Yep. Go. She looks happy.
It is true, like, it's interesting to see flashbacks just as one big long flashback.
Yeah. They're not building suspense by slowly revealing what happened. They're just taking us through all that. Subtle. Honey, I'm home. Did you buy more flowers? There it is. Flowers on the wall.
When?
Flowers on the chair. Flowers in the background.
I called the doctor. I had to.
I told you.
You know,
not
it
to call
honestly
any-
never occurred to me just how pervasive that is throughout the entire
I
movie.
couldn't see.
The flowers.
Flowers everywhere, yeah.
Reaching out her
Yeah.
hands, groping.
I don't think it's reaching at all. There's something very deliberate going on there.
All of a sudden, she was gone.
Well, surrounding him with light.
Yes.
Effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
Living things.
And yet all of it frozen. I mean, all of it, well, some of it's flowers in a vase, but all in paintings on chairs, everything.
Was it?
And of course, things look a little neater and cleaner. Hey, there's the hat. It was on the side table. It's one of my favorite lines of dialogue in the movies coming up.
I'm sorry, ladies. Nothing I can do.
When he tells one of the soldiers that his daughter's in there somewhere.
Get back, folks.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
loud out there.
Terrific line.
Yeah.
Let's not. We'll make sure we're not talking.
Yeah, I don't want to step over that one. We'll
It's a good one.
we'll let that one go. That truck is labeled USA because this is absolutely taking place in the United States and not Italy at all.
Hey, you, mister! Come back! Come back!
All right, we don't want to. It's coming up.
Did this truck just come in from Market?
Here we go.
I said, did this truck just come in from Market Street?
Mister, I don't know.
Well, maybe not. Maybe it's
No, not yet.
yeah, not yet.
It certainly is a really grim
Oh,
scene, though.
yeah.
Just awful.
A lot of people have commented on the Holocaust imagery too.
Hey, you don't belong in here. Get out. I said get out. I want my daughter. Mr.
There you
A lot of
go.
daughters
There
are
we
in
go.
here, including my own.
And he's just taking care of business, though, even with what he's now suffered.
It smells like barbecue.
Oh, man. Vincent's hair
There
is
it is.
disheveled. That means it's serious.
And the smoke blowing across in the wind.
Wind. Lots of wind. No one to make breakfast. How clean everything is. Uh-oh.
Mom! Mom, I can't see!
Blindness again.
I can't see! Mom!
Verge.
Now you're all alone. Eventually, you'll be the last one, sort of a last man on Earth, in a way, when you think about it. No.
Verge.
Well, give us some time. She'll be back.
Oh.
Here we go, folks. If nothing else gets you in this movie, this part should. Well, that's right. We haven't gotten to it yet. I keep jumping the gun on these things.
Yeah.
No.
This is also something that comes up in a lot of these kind of stories, that idea. And you mentioned way back the fact that the whole plot hinges on him being basically a stubborn idiot, that he won't leave. And of course, again, thematically, there's a reason for that. In all versions of this character and all the films they've done, the whole idea is they never leave. They batten down the hatches. They turn their house into a fortress. And the idea is they're holding on to the one slice of everything that was once their past because they don't want to let it go. But letting it go is the right thing to do at a time when everything has fallen apart. Their only hope is to let it go. So it's just this whole comment on human nature and the fact that we desperately hold on to things, particularly if it's remnants of people or places we've loved. But and in the case of every version of this, the character we're watching is ultimately doomed because they won't let go of the past. So it doesn't make any sense. But then again, it's not, I don't think it's like the film stupidity, like, oh, the film's dumb. A lot of people criticize it for that, like, why doesn't he just leave? Well, but that's the point. The point is he's incapable of letting go. And we're already seeing that with the fact that the daughter was dead. Of course, why wouldn't you go running and beg to have your family back? And with her, he didn't want to let her go. He's not going to be able to do that. And there's a whole new order coming to the world with a whole new race of beings that are going to presumably be the next stage of humanity or whatever else is populating this planet. And he's the past.
But at this point, of course, there's been no introduction to the whole reanimation aspect of it.
No.
All we know is that people are dying from this horrible plague.
Right.
Oh, spoiler. I said reanimation. I guess we've already seen
We've been
them
talking.
attack.
Yeah, well, we saw them attack. Oh, here we go. Here's the scene. You hear that?
Yeah, this sends chills up my spine. It's really creepy.
Ah, man. The beauty of this...
Silliest. Oh, go ahead.
No, say.
I was going to say the silly aside is it reminds me of that Brady Bunch episode with the air. I need air.
What I was going to say was that she's so low. By the way, her whisper, it kind of sounds like it's just in on the wind also.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. That's something I've often said in the class. And it's so low that you really have to turn things up, which then makes the impact even bigger. This movie, this scene also, there's a nice connection. One of the most important early zombie movies ever made was I Walked with a Zombie in 1943. Was a Jacques Tourneur film produced by Val Lewton, horror icons. And here we go. He opens the door. Verge has looked better. She's stalking toward us because it's a POV shot, it's a point of view shot. And notice as she comes closer and closer to us, she goes out of focus. Now, there's an identical shot in I Walked with a Zombie when Carrefour, the main zombie in the film, the iconic, very tall black man that's the zombie from the home fort, who's protecting the path to the home fort. There's a scene where he stalks toward the camera, and in an identical way, it goes out of focus as he comes closer rather than trying to maintain focus. And so this scene connects it to the lineage of zombie films of the past.
Well, and let's be honest, it is there's a total homage in the very first episode of The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Now, we mentioned Morgan before and his son Dwayne. And for any Walking Dead fans, which are surely many of the people that listen to us on the Doctor of the Dead show, in the very first episode, when we first meet Morgan and Dwayne and find out that the mother, his wife, is dead but still roaming around the neighborhood.
In her house coat.
In her house coat, she comes to the door and is turning the knob. And also, it's interesting because it fits within a lot of stuff that happened in the first 6 episodes of The Walking Dead that they then later backed off on, where their walkers, their zombies, exhibited behavior that they later decided in the show not to do anything with, like an apparent ability to remember something, a tendency to use tools or weapons occasionally. And they decided,
or to pick up a teddy bear.
Yeah, the teddy bear scene, of course, is crucial with Summer, Addie Miller's zombie in the first episode. So the mother, Morgan's wife, has this apparent sense memory, at least, of going back to the door, and it is just directly an homage to what we just saw.
If Cortman thinks he can get to me by destroying my car, his wits are getting dull.
They're covered in vines, apparently.
Checking out a car, a scene that is one of the few direct connections, really, in a way, that Charlton Heston's Omega Man has a scene early on, too, where he goes to a dealership and handles it in a way that only Chuck could. It's a very different tone to the scene than this one. And, of course, their choices are very different, too. Charlton Heston does not pick a hearse. It's a pretty flashy-looking hearse, though.
Station wagon.
Oh, let's just say it's a hearse. Boy. The funeral service is about to begin. Oh, puppy.
cute, filthy dog. This will not end well.
Although, see, in American action movies of the modern era, it's the one creature that is certain to survive. But
Well, unless you're I Am Legend.
Well, different rules. I Am Legend is a horror movie, so at least partly. So the rules are different. In action movies, and certainly anything Roland Emmerich has ever done, the fuzzy thing is always going to get a big scene where it survives. It's fascinating to me, particularly American movie-going audiences. We can witness thousands of human beings falling and dying and screaming and burning, but if the puppy gets hurt, they would riot in theaters. So you can't ever do that. Now, in horror movies, of course, it's different. And recording as we are in Halloween, I've certainly seen Halloween a few times in the last few weeks. And, of course, Michael Myers takes care of a dog. And dogs are...
He gives it a hug.
He just wants to hug it to death. These steps always remind me of the steps that were a standing set used in a number of Twilight Zone episodes, including Time Enough at Last. Now, they did not go to Italy to film, so it's just reminiscent of it, but it always reminds me. I love the people in the background now. I don't know, I guess I'm not entirely clear on where their use of dummies came in or real people just laying down, but it always reminds me of like anybody that actually plays a corpse in a Law and Order or something, and they have to call their family and say, I got a job, I'm going to be on television, and then a dead person for like 5 seconds. So there are a lot of people in this movie, possibly. I was in a film once. Yeah, I was in a film. They had me lay it down on the floor, and a Vincent Price came over and took a look at me. There he is, see? Dead body number 1.
They're dead. They've been staked.
But not by him.
And not wood.
But these are made of iron. Not wood. Not mine.
If they were a little smaller, I would say that Daryl's been around.
Someone else is alive in this world. But where are they? Where are they hiding?
It's almost like he just can't wait to try one of those. I want to see if this really works.
There's something a little overt about his massaging of the crossbow bolt thing, whatever, spear.
Oh, dear.
Yes, well, that's the academic media studies side of it.
I'm a man.
I'm strangely compelled by this.
Answer me. For God's sake.
Actually, maybe Bill Hader wasn't too far off. It was...
This is KOKW calling. KOKW calling.
KOKW, home of spooky fun. Puppy's back. I have a lot of students who inevitably have seen the Will Smith film. I mean, certainly, they've already seen that. So when they watch this, they're surprised to find out that there's an earlier version. I mean, they hadn't even gotten to Omega Man yet, but they're surprised to see something that's familiar. And one of the interesting comments that comes up frequently in the class is they're shocked at how little the dog has a role to play in this movie. That it's such a fleeting thing with the dog. Because, of course, in the Will Smith one, that's not just basically a crucial major relationship in the film, but its death is also something that makes a lot of them rebel. They can't stand even watching the movie anymore once that scene happens. They care so much about the dog. So when they saw the dog crop up, a lot of my students will say, oh, this is the beginning of him having this long relationship, this friendship with the dog that's going to lead to something. And then it doesn't really go much of anywhere. It's much shorter. But I think that says something, too, about, well, not just the intent of this movie, but the way dogs and animals are often used in a lot of modern films, too. It's a great way of eliciting sympathy and emotional reaction. But I guess with the Italian filmmakers, it wasn't such a big deal. We just have a dog in a few scenes, and that's it. Been busy making a lot more steaks.
You poor, driven.
The dog's just saying, put on the jazz.
Everything's
gonna be all right now.
Nobody's gonna hurt you.
There you go. Another connection to I Am Legend, the Will Smith movie.
All right. You're going to get better.
So as we've already seen, whenever Neville says that everything's going to be all right,
Oh yeah.
it's never all right.
No, that's
And we've already seen in the flashback that he said that repeatedly, and of course it turned out very, very badly.
well, like I was saying before about not letting go. His entire character basically is a character that, from the moment the movie begins, is on the wrong side of this whole thing. He's not just trapped in a world that's collapsed. He's trapped as someone that no longer belongs. He doesn't fit. So he's wrong about everything, including his own survival. I often talk about, I mean, the thing is, when you watch this movie in isolation, Vincent Price is still basically our hero. And we'll talk a little bit later, too, about the fact that when we do meet the sort of power structure of the new group, there's some unsettling imagery associated with them that tends to make them seem more evil, even though some of their actions don't seem evil, just motivated by desire to survive or to stop someone who's threatening them, namely Morgan. But even though he's our hero, he's, like we were saying much earlier, he's the monster in this story. He's the one that's on the other side. And the theme through a lot of versions of this story tends to be, we have a tendency to look at the other or something that's foreign and be afraid of it, and therefore turn it into something dehumanized and evil so that it makes it easier for us to destroy it. But occasionally it's a nice idea to talk to someone else and see that other living beings are equally deserving of respect and regard. That alternate version of the Will Smith film, The Ending, actually preserves a lot of the theme that Matheson's novel was trying to communicate, that idea that they're other people, they deserve a chance. They may be different, but it doesn't mean they're monsters. This movie doesn't really do that, but it's in there. Now we've caught up to Ruth. Our mystery figure, who appears to also be eking out a survival of some sort.
Wait.
As they roam the Italian countryside.
Hurt you? Wait.
It's America.
I couldn't be out here in
America.
the daylight if I was
One thing we never see in this film, right, if I'm not mistaken, is that we never see him dispatch his wife, Verge,
No.
when she comes back.
No.
And obviously he must have done it with a stake or something, because he had to start working out how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we just assume that it went very, very badly.
Very depressing for everybody. Not very good at all. By the way, later on we'll also talk about the fact I mentioned in the intro to this that this is a public domain movie. It was one of the reasons we picked this first for a commentary too, and have everybody have a chance to see it, and even have easy means of tracking it down for this as well. But it's a public domain film, so it means not protected by copyright. It's freely available all over. You can find 47 copies of it. Certainly over the years it's been released on videotape and DVD and Blu-ray and everything you could think of. It's been on television countless times. It's on archive.org, I believe, where they have a lot of public domain material for download or for streaming. It's on YouTube everywhere. The trick, however, is finding a nice copy of it. And since this has gotten more and more of a positive reputation over the years, you can find some really nice, clean, crystal clear copies of it, as opposed to the really, really muddy garbage, which is how you'll usually find it if you buy one of those 50 horror movie DVD collections.
Like a cup of coffee?
You'll find a copy on there that looks like somebody wiped themselves with a print of the film.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm actually the copy that I'm viewing right now is actually on one of those collections, and it's an excellent print.
Well, now that's more available, to have a nicer print of it. But we'll point this out later on too. There are two distinct cuts of this movie, and we are in fact watching the one that's a more complete version of the film. There's one crucial scene at the end that is cut out of one version of the film. The film ends a lot more abruptly, and it's a scene with Ruth and a couple of the other new survivors. But we'll get to that toward the end. And of course, if you're not watching it, then your movie will abruptly end and you won't know what we're talking about. It'll make no sense to you at all. Perhaps you'd like some garlic.
How does Italian sound tonight?
Uh-oh.
I do like that because he has company, he breaks out the nice china, the nice teapot and everything. No, I think that's actually a really important thing.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I mean, because when we saw earlier, he made his coffee or tea or whatever it was, and he just poured it into his mug. But here, he actually brought out the nice china pot, the teapot.
Mm-hmm. The trappings of civility.
You are infected.
But now he's this close to just driving a stake through her heart, even though he's having a conversation with her.
It was all civilization, and then he just grabs the huge bushels of garlic and rubs them all over her face. This is the garlic portion of the evening.
Just because
You can't change the facts by talking.
Facts. What facts? That I got sick? I've had a sensitive stomach all my life. I saw my husband.
I'm not really buying that, Ruth.
Right in front of our house. I've been wandering ever since.
But nice try.
Hiding at night.
Now, the torn to pieces thing is pretty interesting because we haven't really seen that kind of behavior yet.
Now I'm going to reference once again my my book with Andy Hirschberger that helped to define guides to zombie cinema. We were one of the very first books that ever came out that tried to define what constituted a zombie film. Prior to us, there were only a couple other books that had come out, and then there was a wave where everybody had to write one. But Zombie Mania, which came out originally end of 2006, and in our section about it, we always had a section for every one of... We chronicled nearly 600 zombie movies in the book, but we gave 80 of them full chapters with lots of information. And I've been dipping into our chapter for Last Man on Earth because we did absolutely give this one a full chapter for all the reasons I talked about earlier. And in a section called Necrology, we talk a little about the what the creatures are exactly and how to break them down. And we mentioned that specifically. We mentioned the fact that these creatures apparently thirst for blood, not guts, not flesh, although Ruth says she saw some of them tear her husband apart. Now, that is something we picked up on then as an interesting point that suggests, once again, exactly the kind of little detail there that might tip these creatures further into the realm of the zombie that we become familiar with, because perhaps they are doing more. Maybe they are seeking more than what a vampire would, but we don't get any more information about that.
I'm not frightened of them.
It's just one of those little details that makes it all murky. So this movie definitely sits on the edge between the two.
Incompetent, like animals after a long famine. If they weren't, they surely would have found a way of breaking in here a long time ago.
There he is again. Morgan. That's my buddy.
Hear that? That's Ben Cortman.
Once.
He was my friend.
And yet, you would...
He was like a kid brother.
He's right there. Just go out right now.
You just said he was outside.
He's outside, and you also just said that, individually they're weak, so go kill him.
So walk over to the door, open it up, grab Ben, take care of business.
Stick that iron spike through him.
I've been wanting to try this one.
But then you have to wonder, is he reluctant to do it because it was a friend of his?
Probably.
Even though he says, if I take care of this one guy, everything's going to be better. But maybe it is difficult for him to actually consider murdering an old friend.
My theory is that
Okay, now the vampire bat thing is kind of ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah, it's a part where this movie veers into the Z movie territory that I
have immunity.
Don't care for it.
Well, it's only
There's no reason to have done that.
But then again, as he just says, it's only a guess.
I suppose.
You don't think...
But I think it would have been better if they had just skipped it. Just
Well,
not even
in the
about
same way that for years afterward, Romero said that he didn't want the thing about the space probe from Venus to be the reason why they're coming back in Night of the Living Dead, even though the movie goes to great lengths to make it clear that's exactly why. But it puts it in the realm of 50s sci-fi in a way that he later didn't want. And this movie has its own little bit like that ties it down to a certain kind of, let's be charitable and say B rather than Z grade horror movie kind of stuff. But he does dismiss it as, well, this is just an idea. Going back to Ben, by the way, another little factor in favor of the connection to zombie mythos, as he mentions about getting rid of Ben. We mentioned earlier that almost all the others that aren't medicated anyway, like the group we'll see in a bit, don't speak and seem subservient to Ben. Ben appears to be sort of a leader figure that has a bit more on the ball than the others do and is influencing the others. So in a way, there's a bit of the voodoo master and zombie dynamic going on between Ben and the other creatures. And in the next adaptation of I Am Legend, Charlton Heston's version in the 70s, Omega Man, we get a mutated, diseased living group of people called the Family that's sort of based on a lot of the cult stuff going on at the time, with a leader who also has sort of a voodoo master control over the others, even to the point of suggesting there's some sort of psychic link between them. So with Ben and the other zombies in this, see, I even just said zombies. With Ben and the other creatures in this, there's a little bit of a thematic connection there to the past of the zombie genre. So, I mean, I'm saying all these things now, and I'm sure there are people listening going, well, I'm sorry, but they're still vampires. Well, that's okay, because that's true, too. It's all true, and you can pretty much pick and choose what works for you. For me, this will always sit comfortably enough in the zombie genre as a peripheral but essential film that sets certain standards that become absolutely vital to what we now think of as the modern Romero-like zombie.
I want all of it. Why are you here?
But yes, if you're a vampire fan, you've also got a movie here to enjoy.
We're alive. Infected, yes, but alive. We're going to reorganize society. Do away with all those wretched creatures.
See, and while I've been rambling, she's been laying out a lot of exposition about the new race of man. And they're...
You can't join us.
See? She's flat out saying it to him. He's the monster.
I ran when I saw you.
Yeah, I love when this revelation is made, because then you realize I can't root for this guy anymore. I really can't.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because I know for a fact from people that have written about it for my class and certainly people I've talked to, that doesn't necessarily change their minds about him being right as far as they're concerned. I would say that, again, as far as the theme of the story is concerned, that you're absolutely right, because the whole point is he is the past, he's wrong, they're living, thinking beings, and they're trying to build a new era, a new culture, and he's been murdering them. But there are a lot of people that just stick with him and say, well, you know, they're wrong, they're still monsters, they're just deluding themselves. So in a way, this movie can be kind of a Rorschach test for people. See whether or not you split with Vincent Price's character at this point in the movie or not. Now we're good.
Well,
no, go ahead.
I was going to say the interesting thing, too, of course, is that it's clear that it doesn't matter if Ben is present. Regardless of where he goes, those things are trying to destroy him.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was thinking for a moment there was that, well, if it was just him defending himself, yes, I could understand that.
Right.
But then, of course, he does go out and hunt them down and, murder them.
He's been actively trying to kill as many of them as possible. Yeah. So... Well, I was going to say, as we're going to see soon, we'll eventually see in the final act of this movie some of this new race of man, this new group that's trying to reform things and rebuild. And notice she also mentioned destroying the other creatures. If they're referring to Morgan as a monster, it's important to note that while he has been killing some of them, he's also been killing the ones that are the ones in the middle, the creatures that are not medicated, the ones that are wild and still zombie vampire-like in every way. They're interested in exterminating all of them too. She just said to rid the world of the creatures. Well, maybe that means just curing everybody and they all join this race, but presumably, even if that's the case, they'd have to kill some at some point, or something might happen. So the values here seem a little odd.
So is there an assumption that there are maybe some of them that cannot be cured then?
I'm not sure about that. And and while we're rambling about one thing, it's possible she may have said something made a little clearer on that point. But the other thing that I was going to say that's coming up is when we do meet this new race of man, this new group, and several of our listeners have also commented on this, the visual for them has a disturbing quality to it, because there's sort of a Nazi-like thing going on with their garb. They're all dark garb that they have, and you get a little bit of a totalitarian kind of vibe from them. And of course, you don't see like an entire society or culture, but you do get a feeling like maybe this isn't the group we'd want to be inheriting the Earth. You'll see what you think when we get to that point. Right now, it's nice to see Morgan smiling for a change. He's cured her, but he's also put her in a horrible position as far as her other friends are concerned.
Wait.
Notice, by the way, that the sofa's covered with a white sheet now.
Oh, yes. Clean slate.
Yeah.
It's interesting too that you were talking about the. I mean, we're going to get to the appearance of the other survivors, but it's interesting how he brings her into his home and she changes into a black top. No, I mean really, if you think about it, because she does. Once we see those other characters coming up, she now looks like she belongs to them.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you going?
Gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here.
You can't go out there. You wouldn't get 10 feet.
Stewardess, please, let me handle this.
They'll come to kill.
Pace yourself, Ruth. It's 7:30.
Oh, Robert, please.
Ruth, look.
Yeah, you don't see flowers around much anymore in his house.
Robert.
Contrast the way we were seeing the house in the past with the present-day version, and you get
Robert, no.
an interesting little visual exercise there. That's it. That's it. You can do it. It's tough to face the truth. That's what the mirrors are. I know somebody that is just in love with analyzing the use of mirrors in every single film and television show they see, and discussing in depth the way mirrors are constantly reflecting, obviously, aspects of identity and other things. But here at least is something where the mirror makes sense to be delving into it a little bit. Does the mirror repel them because they're vampires? Does the mirror repel them because they hate facing who they are? Which in a sense is still the same thing with a vampire too. It's like confronting them with their evil. And Ruth finally gets to see how messed up her hair has been.
Just take a look at this. This'll prove it to you.
She's gone.
Ruth, there's no change. I've double-checked.
You can't hold on to anybody.
Ruth. Ruth!
Wait a minute. What is he? Oh, okay.
Get away from her!
That looked odd.
Are you all right? Are you all right?
Totally unrelated to what we're watching, I saw a really interesting thing pointing out, and then we're going to have to get into describing these guys in a second, but the very first episode of Twilight Zone...
Where is everybody?
Where is everybody? Has a scene where the main character goes into a store and there's a rack of paperback books.
Yes.
And the title on the books is The Last Man on Earth.
That's right. Yes. Well, Matheson worked on Twilight Zone extensively.
Right.
wrote many of those episodes, and of course it is interesting though that the title is Last Man on Earth and not I Am Legend. But then again, the point was, of course, to provide you with a little visual clue for that story, and of course that predates this.
So here's where things are a little muddy, because these guys are just slaughtering everybody who's there.
They rolled in on a bunch of what looked like Humvees, but they weren't. But all military. They have automatic weapons. They come in dressed all in black. As one of our listeners pointed out, there's kind of like a brown shirt kind of thing going on. There's definitely they look so much like what in many other science fiction movies would be like, oh, this is our totalitarian regime coming in. And yeah, so I was just talking about how they're medicated versions of these creatures. So that means, and you mentioned right at the beginning of the film about how we're dealing with creatures that can be cured. They can be redeemed in a sense. They're not lost. Therefore, you can't easily justify murdering them if you see them as living, thinking beings. And of course, that's why Morgan is a monster. These creatures are medicated versions that are trying to establish a new race of man, a new regime. But they're gunning down the other ones as well, who theoretically are only one dose away from being one of them. So how does that make them better? And they look like the sort of people you would normally associate with some sort of oppressive organization. So there's some dark stuff going on here about what these people represent for the future. It is not a hopeful-looking future with a new group that might, they'll go on, they'll rebuild, and perhaps maybe they'll build a better world. I don't get a feeling at the end of this that there's a better world on the way. And I like, if you watch, that one guy got shot by Morgan, the one right after him just immediately grabs that guy by the head to push him out of the way. So great brotherhood and connection there. Oh, there we go. Always good in a zombie movie. Get armed. Although he didn't take any of the... Wait, that's... All right, well...
Once these guys show up, it really feels like it's the end for Morgan. There's no escaping.
No, because how would there be any reason for that? There's no reason to keep him alive.
Yeah.
They don't want him around. And when you think about the pacing of the movie, too, it's been, like, the early part was very slow and contemplative. It was very quiet. You got a long stretch of flashback that was basically the whole foundation of the plot and everything he's lost. Then you had that brief little sojourn with Ruth. And then the whole thing at the end, for like the last sequence, becomes an extended action portion that leads us right back to this really impressive piece of architecture with this church.
There he is, near the church.
And of course, once again, thematically, we're going to wind up in this church with the last man on earth facing death. And you can feel free at this point, of course, to read every single kind of symbolism you can think of in this, because it's all there for you. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be bouncing back from this. Great shots at the end of this movie, though. Not just the architecture of the church, but that great look, the real high angle of the inside. It's just a huge cavernous place. And there's something kind of perverse and strange about all of them marching in with their guns. Particularly if you're a religious sort, it just, I'm sure, would feel like it clashes pretty much. A bunch of these black-shirted people. And now, notice we're now all of a sudden seeing all the other people. So
even children.
Yeah, so I'm getting the impression that this is a very small group that are some of the only ones of this group that have gathered together and tried to establish themselves. And why is it that they're all wearing black? Well, of course, there's a reason just to choose to do that for the film, but the other question is, did they all bother to go to the local stores and make sure that they all picked up black clothing so they could all match? It's like, well, we're the new race now, so we're only going to wear black. No colors. We're feeling like, monochrome is the way to go now.
No, see, they're all in mourning for the old world.
Oh, that's what it is. I see.
See, that's highfalutin.
There you go. It's another A for you.
Ding.
Morgan's wearing gray. Notice, however, Ruth has a different colored skirt. Black on top, different shade on the bottom. She's sort of between both worlds.
Freaks. Mutations.
And look how primitive this is, too. That they all are carrying guns, but they stab him with a spear. They kill him the way he's been killing all of them.
I'm a man. The last.
And in a sense, he's wrong, because they're the last ones. I love his last line.
Robert.
They were afraid of me. They were afraid of me. They were afraid of me.
It sounds so sad, too. Almost like he sounds like he feels offended that they were afraid of him. But then again, he has been going around murdering lots of them, so...
Well, and it's funny, he says they were afraid of me, and she says they didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And earlier on, when he was talking about killing all of her kind,
yes.
you know, basically he said he didn't know. So that's where there's, oh, here you go, you gotta...
Here's the baby crying.
This.
Now, in the other cut of the film, that's not the good one, the movie then ends right here with an aerial shot of her walking out. This cut goes on to this, where we actually see her walk over and approach the mother and the baby. You have a great comment about this. She says everything's all right, just the way he's been doing.
Yep, and of course we learn very quickly that everything was not all right.
You don't get that final dialogue and this close-up scene unless you're watching this cut of the movie. The other cut cuts directly to this shot.
I don't think there's much in the future for this particular new civilization.
It's all pretty dark looking, just like your screen probably is at this point.
Well, that's it. The last man on Earth.